Welcome back to the channel. Well, we are not in the shop today. Well, at least we're not in my shop. We're at a shop that's about an hour or so south of me. Well, I've been working toward this day for quite some time, and I'm super excited to be able to bring you along for what we have in store behind these walls. Well, those of you that have been following the channel for a little while may have guessed exactly what we're going to be doing today. I'm here at P&B Grinding, and they are going to be grinding the bedways of the 1960 South Bend lathe. Well, I got a chance to talk to one of the owners of P&B, Bill, and I'll let him explain a little bit about the history of the company and what we're going to be doing today.
My name is Bill. We're from P&B Grinding and Machine. We opened in 2012. My partner and I at the time come from a different company. We were shocked to realize between the two of us, we have nearly 70 years experience. So we've been doing this for quite some time. We're a job shop. We'll grind things. Most of it ends up in steel mills. We also do a lot of machine parts, and that's kind of fell by the wayside because companies nowadays, they'll buy the throwaway machines, foreign machines. So the older lathe beds, Bridgeport tables don't get rebuilt the way they used to. We used to do a lot of them for rebuilders. Rebuilders loved it because that's all they had to do was have us grind it, and they'd flake it and put it back together with very minimal scraping. But that's kind of, like I said, that's dropped off a lot because companies just buy new machines. Now we're finding out that the hobby guys have been buying these machines up. So we try to get the word out there to them. We still do it. High precision at a reasonable cost, and we've been doing it forever, so we've gotten pretty good at it. We have Thompson surface grinders by preference. It's older equipment, and we keep up with them. They last long, so and they're good at removing stock on certain things that we need to remove. But we do things the old-fashioned way. We will address angles by hand and do it the way we were taught. Like I said, the rebuilders loved it. It saved them a lot of time and effort. So we have two 10-foot grinders. We have an 8-foot grinder, and we have a smaller 4-foot grinder. And they're all reciprocating surface grinders, are identical. We also have a CNC machine, so we do some machining complete also. Like I said, most of the stuff we do ends up at a steel mill. So we'll do steel mill liners, shear blades. Our forte would be we make nozzle lips that go to the coating industry. It spreads the galvanization on the sheet metal for the auto industry. We've been doing that for years. Those go all over the world. And then we'll grind just typical like bronze blanks, things like that. We'll grind aluminum, bronze. We have vacuum chucks for the surface grinders. Zach started with us about a year after we opened. He was young at the time, but he had common sense and a good work ethic. And my partner at the time was knowing he was going to retire soon. Zach picked right up on it, and he does a great job. His quality is right up there with Pete's, and Pete was a master at what he did at the time. He had a great reputation, and Zach couldn't be more happy. He's done a wonderful job. Well, we've been here, this is our 13th year, so about 12 and a half, 12 years. Like I said, we're a small company. There's only 3 of us, 4 with my wife who does the books, and Pete is now retired, but we cater to the smaller guys, and we have good relationships with our customers. We just enjoy what we do.
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
You could reach me at pbgrinding.com, or my phone number is 330-527-0366. Just ask for Bill. We pretty much live here. We're here from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Friday we leave at 3.
I'll do my best to explain what Zach is doing here. Obviously, what he's doing here is dialing in the lathe bed so that it is along the axis of the travel of the surface grinder. This front surface on the lathe bed is machined, and it doesn't see any wear, so it's a great surface to use here to get this lined up on the grinder. He's now moving the indicator up so it sits on the front face of the V-way. And this is the actual face that sees the most wear. And as he runs the indicator down the length of the bed, you'll see just how much wear is in this lathe. It might be difficult to see because of the quality of the video, but that dial moves probably 15 thousandths, 10, 15 thousandths easy. With the bed dialed in, now the first operation Zach is going to do is to grind the top of the V-ways so they're consistent on all parts of the lathe. And before he can do that, he needs to dress this grinding wheel. He uses these controls down here to set the left and right limits of the grind, as well as how fast it will traverse in and out across the bed.
I can't even put that on the lathe. I'm not sure if I'm going to plate this or not.
Zach's going to redress the wheel now so he can do the finish grinding. Grinding the top of the V-ways didn't take very long. There's not a whole lot of surface there that needed to be ground down. But now the next step will be to start grinding the V-ways, and to do that we need to swap out the wheel for one that's already been pre-formed for the 45 degrees on the V-ways.
I'd have to sleep with it on an IV bag if I was going to get it like you do. I imagine it's just an adjustment, but yeah. When that's what I always felt like the out get up are dependent on you and my job.
Yeah.
But if there's things that you want to do in the afternoon that you can't do it, how far you live from here? 5 minutes. My thing was I would go home, I'd have dinner with my family, spend some time, but then I'd pick up the computer and fix it. Usually when I'm done with work, I'm done. So tell me what you're doing here, Zach.
So I'm gonna track the same spot.
Before he starts grinding the faces of the V-ways, he needs to get a starting point. So by using this V-block and a depth mic, he can get an accurate representation of where he is at now. And as he grinds down the face of each V-way, the V-block will actually drop a little bit lower on the V-way each time, because it ends up narrowing that space at the top. And by taking subsequent measurements, he can get an accurate gauge of just how much material he's removed. And this is so that he can grind all 3 V-ways to match. Well, here you can really get a good picture of just how much wear is in the center of this lathe by looking at the length of contact between the grinding wheel and the bed, and where it's not making any contact, which is in that space right where the saddle sits most of its life.
I'll put a little snippet out there like I did or something like that.
What might not be obvious from this video, but the wheel that Zach is leaning on is lowering this grinding wheel onto the ways. So as he takes passes and when he feels he needs to remove more material, he's actually lowering the grinding head onto the V-way. Right here you can see Zach is actually turning the wheel to the right, which is raising the grinding head away from the lathe. And what that's doing is it's allowing the flood coolant to soak the lathe bed, giving it a chance to cool off, because as he's grinding, he's creating a little thermal expansion. And you don't want this to get too hot. So back off with the grinding wheel and then letting the flood coolant cool off the lathe a little bit before going back to work.
I didn't call kinetic on that. Again, that's just usually when I have a feeling that they probably get the whole place too. Yeah, but I do know somebody who sent his out kinetic. Now, kinetic, they will do it as well, right?
Well, we're seeing sparks all the way across the lathe bed, but they're not consistent. You can see they're still pretty heavy on the far right and the far left. Still kind of smaller sparks in the middle, and that's still an indication that there's wear yet that still needs to be ground out. Perhaps this simple illustration might explain a little bit what's going on here. Here you can see sort of a crude representation of the V-block as it sits on the V-way before any changes have been made. I've added another line to the illustration showing where the current center of the V-way is now. But as he grinds down one side of the V-way, you can see there's now a gap between the V-block position as it was and where the V-way is now. And if we reposition the V-block now so it's touching both sides of the V-way, you can see how it is dropped relative to that red line, which was the original location. And the same process gets repeated for the other side of the V-way. And now that we've ground both the forward face and the rear face with exactly the same amount of grind, it recenters that V-block over the V-way. So the V-way is in the exact same position it was before, it's just a little bit shorter.
Now, on a CJ5, I'm not real familiar with the suspension on that, but I can tell you what might be the issue that you have when you lift it. Number one, well, first of all, fault point. Anywhere at a fault point. You could have steering, you get that flop. Where else would you want to go crazy?
So much that it's not real responsive.
So, it could be your cat. So, when I lifted my first time, right, my tires spin this way, or, you know, or my tires turn this way. Well, as soon as you lift it, now the angle that it's turning. And you know, so there's, on my piece, it's double control.
Well, now the sparks are a little more consistent across the entire length of the bed, so that's an indication that these roughing grinds here are just about complete.
It's really weird, especially on the highway. It's really weird.
I got one control off, hit them on whatever it is, it's all set. It's all straight. That has anything to do with it. I still got to get this.
Also on my Jeep, it uses a tie rod as a drag for steering, and then there is a track bar. Track bar keeps the axle center.
Well, Zach is going to let this cool off a little bit, again, with just letting it get hit with the flood coolant before taking off just a little bit more. This is still roughing passes, but wants to make sure that the grind is consistent, at least at this level, making sure that, you know, that thermal expansion is not affecting the straightness of the grind.
So what I did is you flip it. You gotta throw out the paper and machine a fitting that will reintroduce the tape from the top, and a drag and flip helps with that. Again, it's as soon as you lift it deep, it's just there's other issues that have to resolve in both. And there's something to live with.
Yeah.
If you're planning on selling it, you can lift it. Sell that, okay, then it feels like you can put bigger tires on it, it looks like. So the sparks are getting more consistent now.
Yeah, he's trying to keep it now. Now he's just trying to take out any leaves that are in it. I'm gonna guess it's a 40 those 10 on.
He was, I think he said he was guessing it was gonna be like 8. But we'll see how close.
Without making any more adjustments to the grinding wheel at this point, he's going to spark it out, let it run back and forth until just about every bit of spark is gone.
think you took off, Zach?
That was 9. I said 9, but it probably didn't take 9. I just gotta check it. There were the deeper. It's just a little.
Okay.
Well, so far this is looking pretty good. There's still some gouges in the surface of the ways, but quite frankly, we're not going to be able to grind all that out, or there won't be any ways left. So there's going to be some defects still in the ways, but they won't affect the functionality or really the precision of the lathe once we're finished. Now that this front face of the front V-way has got its first initial rough grind on it, Zach's going to move to the front face of the back V-way.
Right? You still have to do this.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
I'm gonna do this one next.
Okay.
Make sure I have the same drop on this and this,
Okay.
and then I'll grind this. I'm gonna probably take the same amount off each one.
And you're out. Not a whole lot of population right there.
But I'm not actively looking at most people, most of the customers, so I do, a couple of them say stuff.
So what do you think?
Good. I'm reading the same here and here. Right here, there's a 3,000 difference, but you still have wear. I haven't ground here. But I'm gonna grind this one and drop it the same.
Okay. All right, I'll get out of your way.
The next face to grind is the front face of the middle V-way, which is what the tailstock rides on.
So that front underside, the only thing that really sits there is the rack. The back is where the saddle lands on too. So right. That's just the tailstock. Yeah. Off and then come back and touch it off again.
And again, you gotta sense what's happening. And I've watched every surface you did that happen. You come back down and hit it, but it's a little bit less each time. So there's a lot of skill involved in just nailing each surface and making sure it's the same.
Yeah. Certain level of attention to detail and patience that you have to have. And
See how this is. If it's uniform, then it's there.
interesting.
Lathe was definitely a way to go, but even with that, we did it part ways, that has a whole new dimension to it, because they will pick up on heartbeat. You gotta be really careful with hard ways.
With the rough grinding complete on the front side of each V-way, Zach is now going back to do the rear of each one. After letting the bed cool down a little bit just to make sure everything's kind of stabilized, Zach is going back now and doing a finish grind on the V-way surfaces. You can see here where it's still taking a little bit off of each of the far ends, and some of that has to do with thermal expansion. So as you're grinding this thing, it's starting to grow a little bit, and so it's just those little tiny, fraction of a tenth of a thousandth now that he needs to regrind to get it back into flat. With the grinding of the V-ways complete, Zach is now using a side-dressed wheel to grind the very front edge of the V-way. And this is not just an aesthetic feature to do this, it's also a machine surface, so it can be a reference for anything else in the future.
Yeah, I could do it. But I'm gonna do the inside too. Good for
With this same wheel, he'll now grind down the flat way for the tailstock, taking off the same height that he did off of the middle V-way. That way the elevation change between the V-way and the flat way are identical.
A lot of finesse. But it's all crap. Now you're just cleaning this up. You're not taking off the same amount, right?
Oh, I am.
You are?
Whatever I drop,
So whatever you drop the V-way, you're dropping.
I have to drop that. The drop ended up being 16,000 drop.
How much?
It's 8,000 per angle, but
It's double that. So
Double that.
16,000 is basically what you took off?
The grinding is complete, and with all said and done, Zach removed 16 thousandths of an inch from the elevation of the ways. So when I put the saddle back on, if I did nothing, it would sit 16 thousandths of an inch lower than it did before. Of course, all that's going to be taken care of, and we're going to bring it back up to factory specs. Well, that was a long day of grinding, and Zach really put a lot of work into grinding this thing and making sure that it was ground accurate. Total time here in the shop was a little bit more than 6 hours. So even though I couldn't really show all of that on a video, nobody would watch it. I think you can get an idea of the level of detail and precision that he puts into his work. He's definitely a true craftsman. Well, now that Zach has blown off all of the coolant off of the lathe, it's good and dry, we can get it back onto the pallet and get it strapped down so I can get it home. Well, I certainly don't want to forget to extend my gratitude out to Bill and to Zach for their hospitality and letting me hang out in the shop on a nice cold wintry Saturday to watch this thing get ground in and to understand a little bit more about the process of what it takes to grind in a lathe bed. Well, I'll get this loaded up into my truck and we'll get it home and unloaded back into the shop.
What's that? I forgot about that 4x4. That's probably why.
Well, I'm back home and unloading the lathe bed using the most used tool in my shop that I don't own. And it's this Harbor Freight engine hoist that I borrowed from my buddy Chris maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5 now. I don't know. I've lost track. If he watches my videos, at least he knows I still have it and I didn't sell it on Craigslist. Well, I have a couple of these furniture dollies I picked up from Harbor Freight. I'll get the lathe pallet set on there. I'm going to screw the pallet to the dollies. That way I know it won't slide off. And this will make it a little bit easier for me to move it around in the shop. Now that it's back in the shop here, we can get a little closer look at the end product. It is super clean. It is as good as I could have expected. Now, this lathe has seen some dings and whatnot, so not everything is absolutely perfect. And I think there's a couple of spots on one of the V-way surfaces where there was a dent that was just too much to take out. It would have not left much of the V-way left intact. Now the two spots on here really that weren't ground are the little flat recessed areas between the rear V-ways and the one between the flat way and the front V-way. These are not wear surfaces and there is some rust staining on a couple of spots, but I think I can deal with that later when I get back to working on this thing. Well, I really couldn't be happier with how this turned out. I can't wait to be able to spend some time getting this thing put back together and then using some metrology equipment to see just how accurate this lathe is now. In the meantime, I'll keep this thing wiped down and clean, and we'll spray on some CRC 350 corrosion inhibitor just to make sure that we don't get any kind of surface or flash rusting on these freshly ground surfaces. And just to be sure that if or when I do something stupid, I don't end up damaging these freshly ground ways, I've got a piece of OSB here cut to size that will convert this lathe bed into a perfect horizontal shelf to collect more junk. Well, this was one heck of a day, and I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. drop me down a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you excited as I am to see this lathe come back together? If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get notified the next time I put out a video. And a special thank you to all those that are helping support this effort and everything else I do on this channel through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.